Hello and welcome to episode 303 of the Daily Fantasy Edge. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the analysts here at DraftKings. I am the father of the most beautiful beast in the world, Jerry. And we are coming off of a Noah's Ark kind of week. And I mean, Jesus, based on my mentions and the chatter from Friday to Sunday, you would have thought that the world was ending. The rain, Adam. Oh, the rain, the freezing rain. Oh, no. But the wind, the goddamn wind, Adam. And I get it, right? It's a topic that the weather is a topic that people latch onto because it's really hard. It's really hard to figure out what the right play is, what the right decision is with the weather. And let me just lay out a few reasons why I think it's hard. I think first and maybe most importantly, we don't actually know how bad the weather will be in the stadium, right? So like there have been times where people say it's 30-mile-an-hour winds in Philly. The weather says it's 30-mile-an-hour winds are being recorded in Philadelphia. I live 2 miles from the stadium. I go outside, there's literally zero wind. Maybe there's some gusts, but how often are the gusts? In some stadiums in the NFL, they block the wind. So there's those 30-mile-an-hour recorded winds aren't actually in the stadium. Other stadiums have open ends at one side that let in the wind and trap it. It's just really, really hard to know what it's actually like on the field. I'd also note that different players perform differently in bad weather. Is Aaron Rodgers more likely to succeed in sleet than Daniel Jones? I'd say yes. Does a player like Jarvis Landry do better in windy conditions than John Brown? I'd say yes. So it's not just a blanket statement that we can make. And then maybe, most importantly, it's really hard to evaluate results. Like, it's really hard to separate out the weather from other factors. And like a lot of things in football, it's hard to not conflate things. Like, did Nick Foles fail on Sunday because of the wind in Jacksonville? Or is it because he's just terrible? Or, did the wind actually bother the Raiders? Or were they drawing dead anyways? It's really, really hard to say. So, look, all that said, my default is almost always to not change any projection or lineup for weather, unless it's absolutely extreme. And by extreme, I would mean, legit sustained 20-mile-an-hour winds in the stadium. Maybe it's absolutely pouring rain or snow. I remember an Eagles Lions game where the snow was just out of control. Just obvious extreme stuff. Otherwise, we're just making changes based on speculation, really. Like, let's just throw out an entire week of work and research because it's allegedly windy. Like, I think that's a mistake. So there'll be a few games each year, maybe 3, 5, 7 at most that are actually legit affected by weather. Obviously, we want to avoid those, but there are dozens every year that people worry about and play out fine. And honestly, this could be the wrong take. My take could be the wrong take. It really could. I'm not really sure anyone knows the exact answer here. Yes, we have macro data that shows players perform worse in winds of 15 miles an hour or higher. I don't think that's applicable necessarily to every situation. I don't necessarily trust the weather reports when it comes to winds. So that's just my take on weather. I think people need to formulate their own opinions because, like I said, it's really hard and it's really, really subjective. The other story of the week of week 13 was the flow chart. And I mean, my God, Tyler Higbee 7-107-1 at 2,500. I mean, it's just absurd. And so yes, of course, everyone has an unreal matchup when they face the Cardinals. We've said that all year. I mean, Jared Goff just played the game of his life. Todd Gurley looked totally washed, and then he goes ham. Robert Woods 13-172-0. Everybody's been torching. Every position's been torching the Cardinals all year. But the flow chart is just, out of control. I mean, these dusty kind of tight ends just popping up for huge games against the Cardinals. It's really something. And what's funny is I actually thought that Jack Doyle was an incredibly strong play. Like if they were the same price, Jack Doyle and Tyler Higbee, I would have played Jack Doyle. And maybe I should have looked at more lineups that played both Doyle and Higbee together. But man, playing tight end in the flex is just typically so bad, I think. Tight ends are often good values on DraftKings, but their ceiling is so bad, particularly at the low end of the price spectrum. But this was a unique situation, and I honestly, like I said, I would have played Doyle over Higbee at the same price, and then everyone would have laughed at me, for fading the flow chart with Gerald Everett hurt it would have been so painful. What's even funnier now is that the DraftKings pricing team is on it, right? Like, obviously their model adjusts prices for Arizona, but to make Vance McDonald, who has 2 games all year with more than 6 DraftKings points, who has Duck Hodges at quarterback, to make him 4,300 is just so funny. And I'm sure I'll be off Vance or I haven't even looked at the slate yet, but I can't imagine playing Vance, but I don't know. But the flow chart will just, shove it right down my throat. But whatever. It'll be funny at least. All right, let's get to the 4-man, and shout out to me. I was able to take it down again and again by like the slimmest of margins over Al. I think like 0.2 points or something. And this is like, I've beaten Al in the 4-man by like less than 2 points a few times this year, it seems. Shout out to me. But anyways, I was a bit surprised that only 2 of us played Miles Sanders. I get that Sanders had really struggled in the previous 2 weeks and burned, me/us twice. But God, how often do we get a talented running back playing 85% of the snaps with all the pass down work against the Dolphins at 5,400? So sticking with Miles, I think, was a key to me. And related to that, I think the biggest key was, in the 4-man at least, was not playing Jonathan Williams. All 3 of the other guys did play Jonathan Williams. And it wasn't that I didn't like Jonathan Williams. I did. In fact, I had a really hard time right up to lock deciding between a Lamar Jackson, Jonathan Williams, Alshon Jeffrey, Arizona defense team versus what I played, which was Carson Wentz, Le'Veon Bell, Auden Tate, Baltimore defense. But in the end, I just felt way, way better about the workload of Le'Veon Bell and Miles Sanders than Jonathan Williams, given Nyheim Hines, given Jordan Wilkins, given really the state of Indy's offense without Hilton, without Ebron. So really, pretty lucky to find my way off J. Will, to be honest, even though Le'Veon didn't perform much better. And as I mentioned before, I was lucky that Doyle and Higbee weren't the same price, because I would have played Doyle. And, I was also lucky my good friend Drew Dinkmeyer, shout out to the Dink piece, made some good points about the spot for Carson Wentz. So, and I'm going to get more into Wentz in a minute here when we talk about the GBB teams. But, decisions are always going to be close and results are going to be wide. And, I was fortunate to be on the good side of some close decisions, I think, this week. All right, let's get to the listener league. It was 4K entries in week 13. Still flat payouts, I think. Still no rate, can't beat that. And it did not fill, sadly. Pretty pathetic. We have to do better. I'm not sure what the plan is for this week from DraftKings for the listener league, but get in there, and I don't care if you think the field is tougher, it's more than mitigated by rake free. I don't think the general public really completely understands the impact rake has on profitability. But, that's a topic for another day. Anyways, go to DK Playbook, find the logo, find the link, get in there, listener league. Winning the week 13 listener league was Skilbert12, and I feel like he's been close to winning this thing a few times before. He sent me some screenshots of winning some other really big tournaments. Finally got there in the listener league. Congrats to Skilbert12. He played Jared Goff, and I was actually a little bit surprised Jared Goff was 10% owned given the way he's played lately. But, as we talked about many times before, people are not using game logs to make teams. Cooper Kupp at 18%, Tyler Higbee at 42%, did not bring it back with anyone on Arizona. On Goff, from a game environment, the way Arizona plays, how fast they play, their offense can be good from a weather perspective, from a raw matchup perspective, from pace, from stacking opportunities with Goff. Like, obviously, a really good spot. I myself couldn't pull the trigger on Goff in tournaments. My tournament quarterbacks, I played Fitzpatrick and Parker, which was good, obviously. Still didn't make any money, of course, but Fitzpatrick, Parker, and I played a Mahomes tournament team, which was Dust, and played one more tournament team. I don't have it in front of me here. But anyway, Skilbert12 played Miles Sanders, Alshon, and Devontae. So he played 2 Eagles, Miles and Alshon, and Devontae from the same game. And I don't have the data here, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that it's plus EV to play both Miles and Alshon without Carson Wentz. I could be wrong, but I think they have like a neutral correlation. But in terms of like getting first place in tournaments it seems to me that it's just unlikely that both Miles and Alshon go for multiple TDs, which is typically, what you need. Of course, here it obviously worked. Alshon 31 points, Miles 21. So Skilbert 12. I shouldn't be questioning him. He seems to have a lot of success in the tournaments. But the one thing that he did that I really liked was he played LaShawn McCoy with Chiefs D. No Damian Williams, and you had a choice between McCoy and Darrell Williams. There were signs that McCoy has been ahead of Darrell. Thought it would be close in terms of workload, but more importantly, Chiefs D. And I was really pissed at myself for not thinking about this more, for not making Chiefs D more of a priority. Chiefs out of a bye. Big game for them in Arrowhead, where their defense annually plays so much better. Patrick Mahomes healthy. There's just such a huge portion of the range for the Chiefs where they generate a big lead on Oakland. And then we get the dream. We get high wind, and we get Derek Carr dropping back a ton in the second half. Predictable situations for a pass rush. So, yeah, Chiefs D in hindsight, of course, defensive scoring is widely variable, but Chiefs D in hindsight was an awesome, awesome play. So congrats to Skilbert 12. Nice team. There was a tie for second place. These people did not have the same team. They just happened to land on the same number. Tied in second place was Double J01. Carson Wentz 7%, Alshon 14%, Miles 46%, and Devontae Parker 11%. This was the stack that, in hindsight, made so much sense. Wentz playing so poorly lately, but really at his worst against New England and Seattle. Not the best spots. He was playing without Lane Johnson previously. He was playing without Alshon Jeffrey. He had one of those games was without Nelson Aguilar. I mean, they just had the worst pass catchers out there. And, he's been still getting so many attempts. The team is just not that good. So now ideal weather, a capable offense, Ryan Fitzpatrick on the other side, Lane Johnson back. And if you look at the splits that Carson Wentz has had with and without Lane Johnson, it's just ridiculous. Alshon back, Nelson Aguilar back, and then the Dolphins matchup. The Dolphins just snapped Baker Mayfield out of his slump, made Baker look great again. So Wentz, Alshon, Miles, Devontae, and by the way, Devontae's just emerged as a true alpha with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Preston Williams down. And, maybe we shouldn't be that surprised. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick makes wide receivers great. Like, look at the numbers the Bucs put up. Bucs wide receivers put up last year with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like, he is aggressive. And yeah, Devontae Parker thing is not a fluke. I think a large part of it has to do with just Ryan Fitzpatrick being a really good fantasy quarterback. But anyways, nice team from Double J 01. He also had just a lot of the best plays in there. Le'Veon Bell, Christian McCaffrey, Tyler Higbee, Chiefs D, D.D. Westbrook. Play the best plays. Love it. Also tied for second was K. Kirk 55. All right, he had the Wentz Alshon stack, but he had Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Tyler Higbee without Jared Goff, and no one on Arizona. I mean, I know I barely played GPPs and I'm no expert, but God, I don't see how that can be right. But it worked here. So shout out to you, K. Kirk 55. Also, he played Doyle with Higbee for the double tight end set, which, like I already mentioned, I thought that was an interesting play given how strong both Doyle and Higbee were. He got Uncle Len at 6.9%, and Uncle Len was expensive. If we're talking about raw usage, I mean, we've talked plenty about how Leonard Fournette's role is extremely similar to Christian McCaffrey's, just not as explosive. And of course, Chiefs defense also. So nice job, K. Kirk 55, but it'll be Skilbert in the Week 14 four-man. See you there. All right, now it is time for the listener questions. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. All right, thank you to everybody for the great questions. Going to get to 7 of them here. Appreciate everybody submitting them. Question 1 comes from Tristan Braverman. He says, why would anyone enter actual multiplier cash games like double ups and such when the min cash line for GPPs is consistently 10 to 20 points lower to double your money? All right, first of all, I don't think this is true. I need a fact check here. I'm sorry I didn't have the time to check this over the course of the season, but I'd love to see the week-by-week cash line of, say, the Millie Maker versus the cash line of the single entry $25 double up. Because I think Tristan is mistaken. I don't think it's consistently 10 to 20 points lower in the Millie Maker. I suspect, if anything, it's 10 to 20 points higher. but I could be wrong. Here's the big thing though. First, note that a min cash in most tournaments and in the Millie Maker, if you min cash the $20 Millie Maker, it's only worth $30, so 1.5x. And a min cash in these tournaments is a huge portion of the range. Like 20K entries get the min cash in the Millie Maker. Obviously, in a double up, you get 2x. But still, like, I get where Tristan's head is at. Like, let's say we want to play 2K in cash. If we put our cash lineup in the Millie Maker 100 times, the cash line may be close to, what it would be grinding double up / 50/50s. And although we're likely to only 1.5x in a min cash, we at least give ourselves a chance to 3x or 4x if the team goes off. So I understand what he's saying here. I'm just not convinced that the cash lines are close enough to warrant that. And I would love to see some research on that. And certainly in the offseason, I can get to that, go back and look through. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have. And one thing I would say in tournaments like the Millie Maker, I mean, God, if you're playing optimally, you're typically doing really weird stuff. And so people's median outcomes are, should be or might be way below the cash line. The whole Ricky Bobby thing. Like, if I'm not getting first, I'm getting last. Well, obviously cash lines are going to outperform those lineups a huge portion of the time. Is it enough to mitigate the excess rake in tournaments? Is it enough to mitigate the 1.5x min cash in a lot of these tournaments? I'm not sure. Question 2 comes from Greg Facciobene. He says, Adam, is it bad to not go to your sister and brother's 3-year-old kids' birthday parties? They're both having separate party in December. I'm being told I have to go. Couldn't they have at least combined them? Thoughts? Yeah, we haven't discussed much Team Smell the Roses very much at all this season. And that's my fault. It's for sure one of the most important things that I think we should be talking about and keeping in our heads. Probably, on me. I haven't personally done a good job of smelling the roses this year with Establish the Run and the book and, playing bigger than I have before, just been, I think, a bit too deep in the grind, being, stressed and irritable and stuff. And, that's not good. So look, I get that for Greg, I get that a 3-year-old's kid's birthday party sounds bad, but if we zoom out on life, think about what's important, we're present in the moment, it's good stuff, man. Get some pizza, play some kids games, maybe some fresh water, smell the roses. As for combining them, yeah, I mean, my kids were born, my younger one was born January 23rd, and my older one was born March 11th, and we combined last year anyways. That's almost 2 months apart, and we combined their parties anyways. So yeah, I see your point on that, but it is what it is, man. Get out there, smell the roses. Question 3 is from John Sousa. He says, my wife does not turn her shirts or pants right side out when she does laundry, and instead just folds the clothes in whatever state they come in out of the dryer. She claims she's optimizing time because the clothes get worn again anyways, but I think she's insane. Thoughts? Well, first of all, I'm not sure she's optimizing time. I mean, at some point, the clothes are going to have to be turned right side out, whether it's as soon as they come out of the dryer or right before you put them on. I think it's the right play to do it right when they come out of the dryer so that when you go to get dressed, you can evaluate your clothes choices, the right way, not inside out. Seems like an easy one for me. I will say that, generally speaking, turning inside out and / folding laundry is just like, God, I hate it. It's just a colossal waste of time. I hate it so much. It takes so long. I've been getting my laundry done professionally forever now. I mean, like 10 years ago, I had no real money, but I was spending $50 every few weeks to get the service where they come to your house, they pick it up, everything's inside out and disgusting, like huge bags. And then it comes back perfectly organized, t-shirts with t-shirts, sweatpants with sweatpants, perfectly folded and like so tight. Like I give them huge bags of laundry and it comes back in one small one. It's actually amazing. I don't even know how they do it, but it's so worth it. You don't deal with washing and drying and folding and turning right side out and grouping things together and everything. It's just, I mean, it's like a 2+ hour process that is just done better and saves you so much time. So yeah, I think it's one of the things that's worth spending money on, in my humble opinion. All right, question 4 comes from RBQs. He says, seems to be a lot of discussion lately around duplicate lineups given sharper fields, better access to information and projections, etc. Does this make you want to deploy a sort of IKB? And by the way, IKB stands for I know better. Does this make you want to deploy a sort of IKB stance more aggressively than you might have before? Or has this always been your approach? Yeah, I got a few variations of this question and really been getting a variation of the same question all year. Essentially, the question is, are the games too tough, right? Like Goodnight Moon, Thomas Fuller, he sent in a question along the same lines, asking about my opinion on DFS trending towards solved. I'll say two things. First, I'll repeat what I've said a few times before. I think at low and mid stakes, you can still get plenty of good action. I have no problem getting 4 to 8K of good cash action in a week and that's DraftKings alone. That's main slate alone. That's NFL alone. Now, I get if you're trying to play real big, it's harder. I don't know if there's 20K worth of good action out there anymore. Maybe not. But that's just not applicable to 99% of the people listening to this, to 99% of the people on DraftKings, and 99.5% of the people on DraftKings probably. So like this bubble on Twitter of people bitching about the games and stuff, I think it's applicable to people, trying to play real big. Now, in terms of lineup sharing and projections, etc., yes, it's extremely obvious that a bigger portion of the field, depending on the contest, is no longer just building through game logs and their gut, right? Like a larger portion of the field is getting help from, getting information from a subscription site, is using some, baseline of or a projection system. So anytime our opponents are all doing one thing, in this case, using similar projections, of course, there's some value in the IKB and the I know better stuff. And yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I honestly think I do know better in a lot of cases. I think especially in the NFL, there's a lot of feel that has value in terms of how workloads will be split up, what kind of game plans will be implemented, how coaches will react to injuries, how long a player's leash is, how effective players will be, playing time trends, having a feel for floor ceiling stuff, for ownership. A lot of that stuff, I think I know better. So yeah, to answer RBQ's question, yeah, I mean, if we just find some projections and optimize them or spam in 150 or whatever, you're going to lose. I think there's just more to it in the NFL than that. It's just deeper than that. All that stuff, all the information, all the news, all the research, all the usage, everything that we do all week, a lot of it is subjective and subject to interpretation. And those subjective portions are baked into a projection. So, it's not like the end all be all. It's just like, yeah, of course the games are getting harder. People are building their lineups differently, but I still think that we can do it better. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. I mean, I hope it does. Question 5 comes from Leland Snyder. He says, need you to shed some light on a topic my man Justin Freeman raised recently. What are the ground rules for sending food back at a restaurant? Yeah, for me, the answer is never. Never in my life have I sent something back at a restaurant. I'm not even exaggerating or joking. The obvious reason, the number one reason, is because I'm just petrified that my food is going to be messed with. Like, I'm sure you've seen Road Trip, with the French toast, but it's just obvious. You tilt the people in the back and they're probably already so busy and tilted and stuff. Like, you can't bitch and give them the food back and expect them not to mess with it. And the bigger reason is just, personal responsibility. Like, I know I take this probably too far in a lot of different areas on life, but like, it's on me, man. If I don't like the food, I picked the wrong restaurant. I ordered the wrong thing. It's on me. If I said no onions and there are onions on the sandwich, well, you know what? That's the way life goes sometimes. I throw it in the trash and I don't go back to the restaurant, It's on me. I made the choice to go there. So, I don't blame anything on the waiter. I don't blame it on the chef. I blame myself. I take my medicine. There's just no shot I'm sending anything back. You got to be out of your mind. Question 6. Forgot to write the name here. I apologize. We'll call it anonymous. He says, why did you mute the term Game of Thrones? Yeah, because I don't watch the show. And personally, I think the obsession over it is really annoying and silly. I get it. It's a good show. I respect the quality. I respect the work and the effort that they put into it. It's just not for me. I'm not into dragons and fake things and zombies. And I'm honestly not really that into TV in general. It's just not for me. So I personally, like I don't want to sit around on Twitter and debate or watch people debate what will happen next in something that's fake. Like I really don't get it. And I know I'm in the minority here. Believe me, it's just not for me. I'm sorry to all the Game of Thrones obsessors out there. I'm on Twitter for information. That's it. And maybe some jokes. That's it. Not Game of Thrones debates. Matty Ice says, what is the Stone Nuts time for shower length, and how much does that increase with the narrative in play? I think for an individual shower, you want to stay in long enough for max cleaning. And, by the way, I use the bar, the hard stuff. I don't use the gel. I use the bar. So you make sure you get the bar all over every inch of your body. And then, I do a little face wash, a little scalp wash, and we're good. That said, I like to hang in there a bit. I love being warm. I know it's healthier to take cold showers. And, it's probably why my skin is so dry. I take such hot showers, but it feels so good to have it on max heat, as hot as it can go. So I don't think there's a GTO length for individual showers. If we're talking about locker room showers, the shower narrative, well, that's a different story. You need to find time to not only clean your body, but you also need to discuss your deepest fears and emotions. You need to discuss women. You need to partake in some horseplay, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone is hot to trot on this new narrative, right? The duck blind narrative, the hunting narrative. Essentially, when you go killing animals for sport with another man, the bond is strong, or so it goes. And of course, James Washington has had arguably more success with Duck Hodges than Mason Rudolph. I get it. And I know I have strong priors here, but I'm still sticking with the shower narrative, guys. Terry McLaurin and James Washington have failed me, but there will be more. There will be more. The shower narrative will rise again. All right, we will be back on Thursday this week, normal schedule, with Al and Pete. So, for producer Luke, for Jerry, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody. We are promoters at DraftKings and also avid fans. Our usernames are Adam Levitan, Al Smizzle, and CSU Ram 88. We may sometimes play on our personal accounts in the games that we offer advice on. Although we have expressed our personal view on the games and strategies in this podcast, they do not necessarily reflect the views of DraftKings, and we also may deploy different players and strategies than what we recommended in this podcast.